TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Kevin got the plug pulled on him. Lex got the plug pulled on him. There was a lot of guys that were always trying to build to surpass me or to create. They're always trying to get me out of the way, but for some reason I always kept rising above everybody.
Right.
I think it's just because I outworked everybody. I worked hard. And Shawn was just starting to come up. Shawn was always a really good athlete and always a pretty good worker. And maybe was starting to become maybe in his best form that he's ever been in. I never had any problem with putting Shawn over, ever. It's like, and I like Shawn in those days, and I considered Shawn one of my good friends in those days. But and I know he talks about the clique and all that, but there was a clique, and there was a lot of politics going on, and a lot of politics that little group were directing, including I think my title loss in the first place through Backlund to Kevin. I think it was all manipulated and controlled by outside forces, which is kind of not the way the business should be run. It's, you can do whatever Vince wants to do, and of course Vince has final say, sort of thing. But that's that kind of thing I was talking about, the politics of people backstabbing to get what they want. Luckily, I was champion that time, the first time, without, like, I won it the same day I found out. Because anytime there's any long-range planning, there's so much backstabbing and conniving that you find that big spot. Like Lex never quite got it. Kevin, I think, was just a little too early in his push, to be honest, and never got it. I wasn't ready for it at the time. But the problem I had with Shawn was I just didn't feel that I was a guy to carry the belt to give it to him. Like, I knew that was kind of what was in store for me, but I wanted to be treated with a little respect. And right away, as soon as I won the title, I think a lot of this is always controlled by Vince, so I'm not necessarily targeting Shawn. But from the time I won it, the pay-per-view with the British Bulldog, the Inner House, which I thought was an awesome match, I had to pull all that together. Bulldog was hardly over. They hadn't done anything to get him over. It was almost like they threw me another crappy pitch kind of thing. And luckily for me, I turned it into a really nice, like I hit a home run kind of thing with that match and carried, which was really hard. It's one of my best achievements to pull a match out of Davey as Davey the heel. Now Davey's driving the car technically in the match. And Davey was never as good a heel, to be honest, as he. Davey was a follower in the ring. He was never a leader in the ring. And he couldn't make you. It was the other way around. You had to make Davey all the time. And if you could do that, you could have a great match with him. And we did have a good match. It took kind of pulling out all the stops with the blood and everything, but it was really well done, the match. But the very next night, there was no mention of the match. There was no mention of, I think the day after I won the title from Kevin Nash, actually before the match with Davey, I never even had an interview talking about how I won the title or anything. No, like, welcome to the new champion.
Right.
None of that. It was Shawn got stretchered out with a kick with Owen or something like that, where they pretended he was hurt. He was never really hurt. He had whatever it was, the injury, brain injury that he had. And he got to sit home. He went home through 3 or 4 month vacation, which is, great for him. And he's going to wrestle me at WrestleMania. He's not really even hurt. He's just going to go home and do the stairs, do upside down sit-ups and all that stuff, and get ready for this hour match. They sent me to Bahrain and India and all over the place. They pounded me to the ground. I worked with Undertaker and Kevin Nash every night. Got jackknifed, powerbombed all over the country. It was hard. I couldn't get ready for the match. I'm going, how can they expect me to go an hour? And I'm working with 2 heavier guys and big guys that are just throwing pounding the hell out of me.
Right.
And I could realize that it was designed to make sure that whatever happened in WrestleMania, that I did not get over. It was important that I was sucking wind at the end of the match, that it was the Shawn Michaels show, Shawn, and you could tell the whole time I had the title that I had no push from the office. They cut my power completely. And I even accepted that with a pretty good grace. It's just sort of, I didn't understand it. I thought it was a shitty way to treat me. But I had never had a big problem with it. I think the big problem when I started to see signs of trouble with Shawn, started to get the ego problem. I can remember State College, Pennsylvania, 2 or 3 days before Kevin Nash and Scott Hall switched offices. And it gives you an idea how all of them were so close, because they might not have been that close, because I know that Shawn never knew anything about it. Because he said to me, he goes, you have to understand, whoever the champion is makes the most money.
Right.
And I never ever dictated who I worked with, ever. Even though it's funny, I did work with Owen, Davey, Jim Neidhart, and all. It was never my decision. That was Vince's idea. I never ever singled out any opponents. It was whoever Vince wanted. And I can remember Shawn telling me, he goes, I can't wait to get the belt. He goes, I can't wait. He goes, the guys I think I can draw money with. I think work a program with Kevin. I can draw money with him. I said, I think I can work a program with Hunter. He's coming up, and I can draw some money with him. He goes, I even think I could do a program with the kid. And he goes, and me and Scott Hall can do these ladder matches or something like that. And I remember listening to it, and I go, that's all 4 of his friends. Like, that's a really bad precedent in this business, that you have the main event singling out all his friends, and it's like me and all my friends are going to make all the money around here. And the rest of these guys, like the peons in the dressing room, you're lucky you're on my card kind of thing. And it's like, wait a minute, that's bad business. It's really bad to start that kind of. That's a bad, what do they call it? Anyway, it sets a bad example for the whole business. And which is, you look at the business today. I think the business is in the state it's in, which is like, hey, maybe it's doing great. I don't personally agree that it is, but I think if you that respect and the morality in the dressing room that was gone from that point on, because Shawn was a great wrestler, and he could have got all that respect and that everything he ever wanted out of the business just on his ability, and I think everyone understood that. But Shawn was too insecure about his own ability, and always had to stab everyone in the back and play head games and become this unbelievable prima donna in the dressing room, and basically just not be good business. And I saw the first signs of it at that time at State College. I got ready for the match. I did everything possible to be ready for the match. I surprised everybody by being ready for the match. And if you watch the match with Shawn, as great as worker as Shawn is, Shawn sandbagged me a lot of times through the match. If you watch the match back, you can see me numerous times having to pick him up dead weight in the match. If you watch from my end, you never see any of that. Shawn never had to pick me up one time in the whole match. Shawn was the first one to start throwing potatoes in the match. He threw 2 or 3 pretty stiff shots, busted my lip open and stuff. And so then it got, after like 2 or 3 or 4, it got to be like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna throw potatoes back and forth. I never thought the match with Shawn was a great work. The match with Shawn was a great contest. It was 2 guys, one trying to protect his legacy, and another guy trying to diminish mine. And it was a contest to see who could outdo each other for 60 minutes. And it was in a lot of ways, it was a classic Japan kind of match, maybe. I certainly respected him. We mapped out, unbelievable how we mapped out so many different high spots, different things through that whole match. And I remember telling Shawn, I said, how much time do you need in the end to get all your shit in? Right. Whatever it is. You tell me how long you want, you got it. I'll catch for you for the last, you tell me how long you want. He goes, 4 minutes is all I need. And if you watch that match, we got no clocks. We got no idea how much time's left other than the odd comment from a referee every 10 minutes or something. And there's a certain pivotal point in that match which was the cue. And I think it's exactly 4 minutes left in the match. And it's a credit to Shawn, and it's a credit to me that we planned out 56 minutes the very day of the show, and it was perfect. And I know Shawn said something about it. I ducked him and I didn't take his calls or something. But the truth is, that's not true. I mean, I was always aware and prepared. We kind of talked. We really just didn't know how to put it together. And I think I was more into kind of a deep. We blocked off segments like, here, you take care of the first 5 minutes because I don't really care. We put a lot of trust in each other, and it was a great match. I've always been proud of it. I thought we could have been more. If he'd just been a better guy, I think through the whole period, we would never. It would have been more of a work instead of a contest. But all in all, it was great. Things that need to be clarified, I think. I don't want to dwell too much on Shawn. But it was all set up for me to leave and exit the business and the building exactly that way. We wanted to give everyone in the dressing room the impression that it was a bit of a shoot. And it was all planned. It was all thought out. Shawn was in on it. I was in on it. Vince was in on it. It was done for a reason. I was not purpose. I said, well, don't shake your hand. it was mapped out before I ever dropped the title, and it wasn't written in stone or anything because I didn't work like that. But the idea was that I would come back. There might be enough interest if we sensed it was, if the attention was there, that we would work another match, a babyface match, and I would go over, and then I would work with him a third time and put him over again, and then we would shake hands, and then we would do a tag team thing or something. And that was what I had laid out. I threw it out as an idea. When I did drop the belt to Shawn, I didn't have any bad feelings about it at all. I know that 3 weeks after he won the title, the ratings dropped. The first time WCW was beating us in the ratings. And the panic set in because Shawn was over with the girls, but I don't think he was ever over with the male audience ever. And a lot of people liked him as a worker. And he was certainly not over with the boys. He had a lot of heat with everyone in the dressing room, as did that whole clique. And when the clique left, they left with a lot of heat. Like Scott, Kevin, left with a lot of animosity, and because just people didn't like the way they did business, I think. And Shawn didn't get over, like I guess like he wanted. It had nothing to do with me, but all I saw was an opportunity to come back, and this is what we could do. Yeah, I took a bunch of time off. I was going to try to do acting. I pursued the acting. When the WCW offer and all that happened, so they were trying to lock everyone into 5-year contracts, and unfortunately, that's what kept my brother Owen, and he did sign a 5-year contract. But when I took the time off, it was a sort of unannounced, surprise, sudden, perfect, time meeting between my manager at the time, looking to make money off me and pull a big deal with WCW. But it had nothing to do with me. I had no idea, and I was actually a little. This was way too premature to have this meeting. I didn't want to have a meeting. And at that time, to be really honest, I had no intention of ever leaving WWF. And I was happy with looking forward to going back if I ever did go back. Actually, I thought I might actually have an acting career still kind of hanging there. And I was glad to have the time off. So I did meet Eric Bischoff. I threw him an outrageous number, and they called me back pretty much to say that it was a possibility. And that started that whole negotiation. But to probably be really, really honest, I negotiated and tried to get as good a deal as I could with the WWF. And most of what I got wasn't a financial deal. It was never a financial deal. What I got from my contract negotiation with Vince was I got total protection that they could never, they never just could ruin my character. That I had to have some control over what they were going to do with my character. So a lot of what I did was something that needed to be done for years. I was the first guy to ever finally, and I think that's why I was kind of rubbed out. Right. It's because I was the first guy to finally have some kind of rights in the business. I had some say, and I had a voice. And I negotiated in good faith with Vince, and he came back and made this offer, and they gave me all these conditions, and he met that offer, and I signed. And I remember even after, if you watch the Survivor Series, when I worked with Austin, which is another important thing you should know, and I'll mention it now, is that Austin had come up and met me in my house and told me that basically said that I had to, we really need you back. We really need you to come back, and you need to get Shawn out of there. Shawn is like bullshit. It's bad business, and he's got a shitty attitude.
That's when basically you were heel, and then you went.
No, that's before.
Right,
I was still babyface.
Right.
So then I came back. I worked Survivor Series with Austin. We had a pretty good match. If you listen to the commentary in that match, that's Madison Square Garden, Jim Ross and Vince buried me all the way through the commentary. I remember I bitched about it to Vince. I go, what are they talking about? That I was too tired and ring rust and all this shit, I hadn't worked in 6 months, and I gave you a better match than most of the guys you got on your card. It was just cheap shots all the way through. And I thought it was personal. I thought it was intended to be personal. And I said, if you have a problem with this deal, if you're not happy with the deal, tell me now. Just say so now, because we don't need to. I came back as a favor to you, kind of thing. And he goes, no, I wouldn't have made the deal if I didn't like the deal. And he didn't apologize, but he said it was a misunderstanding, or he did. But that was the first crack, I think. But going back again to Shawn had come up to Calgary that summer, I think before I ever signed. And again, in that meeting with Shawn in the dressing room here in the Saddle Dome, I talked to Shawn again. I said, I just have an idea and tell me what you think about it. If I come back like I got a bit of a chip on my shoulder that I lost to you and all that. You know, I never shook your hand. And I said, we build it up, and finally we have the match. And it would have been, tell me if you like the finish, because it would have been a good finish. We're going to do a match where Shawn finally gets ready for the big kick. And right at the last minute he goes for the kick, I was going to do some kind of move where I catch his foot and I go down. This is when Ultimate Fight Challenge was starting to become pretty prominent. And I was going to do a thing, we even talked about getting a boot made that had almost like a socket wrench kind of thing to it.
Right.
And I was going to snap his ankle. And we even talked about stuff like having something snap under the ring with a sound.
Right.
But I was going to blow his ankle out, like completely break his ankle in the middle of the ring. And he taps out. That's how he was going to quit or I give. Or he was going to tap out like the Ultimate Fight guys. And then I get up and he's selling the shit out of his leg. And I get up and I don't shake his hand again. I take the belt and I go back to the dressing room. I said, then he builds, he comes back, takes the time off, comes back, and then he kicks my ass with the big boot, knocks me out. I come up, I shake his hand, and we tag. And was going to build for, I said, just an idea. He goes, I think it's great. Like, he thought it was a good idea, even though he hated it. See, but Shawn, he didn't want to drop the belt to anybody on the planet. You know, this was his moment. He didn't want to ever lose it. And that's where the politics came in. I was being very, you know, if he'd said, look, I don't like it, I don't want to do it, he should have said to me, because then I would have come, you know, I was just suggesting stuff. But he gave me the idea that it's cool, let's run with that. So then when I did come back, Vince promised me that I win the title at WrestleMania from Shawn. I hear all kinds of stuff that he was never asked, or this or that. I don't know what happened. I can't speak for what happened with Shawn and Vince, but I think it goes without saying that there was a lot of politics. I think Vince played us off against each other big time. Right. I think Shawn is more guilty of that than me, though. I was more used to it. I never fell for it. I think a lot of guys never fell for it, but Shawn did. A lot of the stuff I said a lot of stuff about his family.
Yeah.
I don't know of anything I ever said about his family ever. I know I talked about the Playgirl magazine thing was about the only thing I ever said about him. And even that, the very first night I went out and said it might have been the very first night. I think the very first time I did an interview coming back and where I turned down the money and all that. I might have mentioned it about role model or something like that. And it kind of was a shoot interview and kind of a cheap shot. And maybe I was out of line then, but I remember apologizing to him after and he didn't have a problem. And then weeks after, I asked him again. I said, should I mention it or should I? And he goes, yeah, go ahead. And you can. And it became like he kind of endorsed it. So then I did kind of like, okay, so it's acceptable, or he's going to, you know, it's okay with him to do that. So I did kind of write the Playgirl magazine thing. But again, I was always working a shoot. That's what I was doing. I was never shooting with him. And if you look at what we could have done big business, I think, based on what I was believing at the time. Shawn wasn't. And then when he pulled up lame at WrestleMania, I didn't know what to make of it. I said, I'll believe if I see him working again a few weeks from now that the whole thing's a bunch of shit.
Right.
I said, if he's hurt and his career is over, and I feel really bad because he's too good a worker. So we kind of questioned the guy's integrity to see what happens in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, what happens after WrestleMania. Well, just like everybody thought, he surfaced conveniently right after with no injury at all. I think that's where the heat started with Shawn and me, is because he really, really took offense to me speculating that it wasn't legit. And I wasn't just the only one. Everyone thought it was bullshit what Shawn did. But I think maybe that's where the heat came from, because maybe it was legit. I don't know. But that's where it started. It never started with me talking about his family. That is horseshit. And a lot of what he said is horseshit. And it's just a guy that was on pills that was kind of out of it at the time, that maybe was too stressed. And it was played like a puppet the whole time. And it was, I don't know how, he talks about shaking hands with people and stabbing in the back minutes later and accused me of that. That's outrageous for him to even suggest that. It was always the other way around. I don't know how many times I buried the hatchet. Even the thing about me suggesting he wasn't really hurt. I remember he told me with almost tears in his eyes that he was really hurt when I said it. We had a little chat out in the stands about it. And I said, well, it was something I suspected. I said, but if I apologize. and let's start over. Let's get back to business. We can draw money with each other. And it was right around there, almost like within like seconds of that or weeks of that, he comes out with the Sunny Day remark, and that was, he talks about it was just childish games and stuff. That is some serious. A lot of wrestlers would shoot you for something like that, and it's totally unfounded. There's probably more truth out there. There's probably more facts out there to base a homosexual relationship with Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon that would ever tie me in with Sonny. And it's like, but I mean, what you could speculate is like it doesn't matter anyway. He said, she said, this, that. It doesn't matter to me. There's just nothing to any of that.